Hey, what's going on, guys? Is here once again with another new build diary today. I wanted to record my balance video before this one, but I need to stream and I need PoE to play, and there's going to be a lot of changes that happen in the next few hours on this character, so I wanted to get episode 1 of this already like recorded and done with. So this is Physics Maw. Originally I was planning on doing like a poison reap occultist, kind of like what Ben is doing. But then that character actually ripped while leveling to a server timeout. Like I was running through mud flats or whatever in Act 6 and ping shot to 10,000, couldn't log in. And then when I did log in, my character wasn't there anymore. I was like, okay, was mildly salty because that character did have my empower on it, because I don't expect to die while leveling ever, but unfortunately server shitting the bed I can't really, you know, account for. So that happened and I was like, okay, then something new. So then it was a POB stream. We were doing stuff a long time, and there's been one person in my chat, Waves, who's just constantly pushing this like, dude, Maw of Mischief, try it, sleeper OP, try it. So I actually was like looking at random stuff like on YouTube. I was like trying to look at different skills or something, maybe like just something new, right? Something new. Everything's stale right now. I want something new. And I saw this video and I didn't even realize the dude was using, like, I couldn't put it together that like what my chat was talking about and what I was looking at were the same thing. I just saw these like cool, like cyan, teal, whatever color this is, explosions, and I was like, wow, that looks super cool. And then that was like, I want to try to do something with that. So that was like how this build came about. I did look a little bit around PoE Ninja. I looked on the internet. This seems to be a relatively sleeper build. There are a few people who have messed around with it and done some stuff with it, mostly well, completely in software trade, but it hasn't really taken off. It's not very popular. I'm included in this list of thinking it's sleeper because I didn't even know this got like massively buffed last patch, but it did. It got like ridiculously buffed. So maybe, I don't know, a lot of people, other people haven't picked up on it, but it is quite strong. So the character is level 87. I'm just going to throw in a random, oops, this is not my map device, is it? We'll do a random white villa. Completely white. I'm running grand design, so we're still going to have like 30 to 40 pack size anyway. Yeah, 31 pack size, so still going to be pretty juiced here. So this is what the character is at the end of day 1. Basically just put on the Maw. And yeah, started mapping. And the character did so much damage that I kind of went, like, I did like 2 white maps and then kind of just went straight to reds. It did enough damage and I just essence crafted some decent gear, did a little bit of recombinators to get some like decent starter gear going for the character to help it survive in high red maps, because it had the damage. It's more about just staying alive. So as you can see, it's pretty fast clear. I'm using barracks right now. I've never used barracks before ever, just because I didn't want to sacrifice a ring slot for something that gave me effectively nothing but potentially clear speed. It's kind of cool in some senses and not cool in others. I don't plan on using barracks forever. The only reason I'm using barracks right now actually is because I don't have any more Eldritch currency, and I want Ignite Prolif on gloves. I was using Ignite Prolif in the helmet, but I decided to try the ring out just to see if it felt better. It's really cool sometimes. It's very essence drain contagion-y in a lot of ways. Sometimes it'll like chain around corners and get like some really cool things going on, but honestly I think I prefer just normal Prolif overall. There's a lot of stuff in the game, especially nowadays, like delayed spawns. We're talking Harbingers, we're talking Eater of World Influence, which is what I'm farming, where like mobs come out in a like wave pattern, like there's a delay in between. So like playing with a basically like chain type ignite, I'm having to cast way more often, whereas like before with Prolif, like if there's a Harby, right, I can just throw it, like for this instance, I can just send in my minions, explode them, And then as he summons minions, the Ignite Prolif clouds are still there, so they just keep instantly dying, and I don't have to keep casting over and over and over to keep chaining. But yeah, I think overall I prefer Prolif. Both are fine, but eventually the character's going to be Prolif anyway, like no matter what, simply because I don't want to sacrifice a ring slot for just potentially, in some cases, better clear and worse clear in others, you know? But the build can actually be super zoomy, can go super fast. You know, like basically, technically this is a channeling build, but I mean, you wouldn't know it because I don't channel at all really, like while clearing. You just like kind of like walk through and I tap right click once and everything immediately dies. So it's actually really smooth to play. It reminds me a lot of like tele stomping in D2 while mapping, simply because like basically the crux of the build. I'm not gonna like go super in depth as always. I don't want to like explain key components during a map showcase for people who skip the map showcase. But basically, I'm exploding my minions, right? That's where all my damage is coming from. So if my minion isn't where I need it to be when it explodes, I'm not getting damage from it, right? It doesn't do anything for me. So in order to position my minions how I want them, Convocation is a very important tool for the build. So it feels a lot like tele stomping, like Corpse Explosion Necro in D2, because I will run in, I will Convocate on top of me, and then just tap right click, and then it'll kill stuff. Though it does have the really cool benefit of I'm getting like super sidetracked. It does have the really cool benefit of being able to like sit back. I guess we can do this essence. Like you can sit back if there's like Rippy Harbies or essence monsters even or stuff like that. You can like just chill at the back and, you know, let your minions run in and explode them and they'll deal with it. So it's not like you have to always be melee, but obviously like for speed clearing, it's like shield charge, Convocate, right click, shield charge, Convocate, right click, and the AoE is just absolutely massive. All right, well, that was the map showcase. So let's actually get into the character a little bit. I'm going to, I guess we'll talk about the helmet first, and then we'll go over the passive tree. So what is Maw of Mischief? Okay, well, it's a helmet. It's an armor, energy shield base, which is a little bit important. And basically what it does is it gives us some life, reduce cost of minion skills. It changes all of our minions AI to being aggressive, and it grants us Death Wish. So what is Death Wish? Death Wish is what you see here on my right click. So basically, as you channel this spell, it spreads its effects to more of your minions. When you stop channeling, each affected minion explodes, and this skill deals spell damage around them. The explosion of the minion is not affected by modifiers to spell damage and cannot be reflected. So you'll notice that a lot of that wording is very similar to DD, and a lot of the scaling works very similar to DD. In fact, this build I think would be a lot cooler if DD Ignite wasn't currently super meta, because there are some similarities there. Let me bring it up real quick and I'll talk specifically about what the helmet does for like with Death Wish, because this is important. So base, it deals 316 to 474 fire damage. That's actually wrong. That's wrong. It was buffed. Okay, so that's what it used to do, 316 to 474. As of last patch, it was buffed to 444 to 666 fire damage, which is a lot. And it used to previously explode your minions for 13% of their max HP. Now it's 19%. That's quite a bit. And if you're wondering why you would want to channel it longer, right? It's because you get 10% more damage with hits and ailments per affected minion. This caps out at 13, by the way. So that's basically the build. It's like very DD-esque in scaling, except instead of scaling corpse life, we're scaling minion life. It's very similar to SRS Popcorn, like that type of play style, that type of scaling. It's kind of, in a lot of ways, it feels like everything that Dark Pack Skeletons wishes it was in a lot of ways. So we'll go over the passive tree a little bit here, and then I'm gonna like really break down some of the mechanics because there's some interesting stuff going on here. So basically, for leveling, you can't equip the helmet until level 73, which is quite high. So for leveling, I just did the generic like speed leveling armor brand Krima strat. You know, you path up through the spell damage to Arcanist Dominion. You go through Firewalker, Lightning Walker, and Frostwalker to get free res while leveling. Path up through the Ellie nodes, grab Cruel Prep, Ellie Overload, then you path straight left for Holy Fire. You grab Spiritual Aid, so minion damage affects you, and Divine Judgment. After that, you path up here through to Holy Dominion and Discipline and Training. And then that's, you know, that's everything, right? Grabbing your mana reservation and life, you know, along the way. And that's kind of how you level typical armor brand strat. Like this, there's a million guides on that. It's like super old meta leveling strat. So that's what I did because everything was basically identical. I didn't have to really respect the tree at all. The only things that changed is once I got Maw, I, you know, spec'd out of Arcanist Dominion here and just linked my tree up from the left side instead. And instead of, you know, linking through Arcanist Dominion and this Ellie node to the top of the tree, we go through Minion Life into Lord of the Dead because it's a bunch of damage. It's 20% increased damage and 25% increase Minion Life with +1 to Skellies, which is relevant to us. So that's how I leveled. Basically, by the time you're running the Maw, you do want to have Golem Commander because it's +1 Golems. I also took the Minion Defense Mastery for Convocation, giving increased CDR. This is actually really funny. This is probably the first build that I've seen that like really wants an Ashes of the Stars. Because typically every Ashes of the Star, like every time you see Ashes of the Stars, it's like you can just kind of like plug in and play. It's very easy to fit into almost any build and it will be a really good amulet. But it's typically not like the best amulet, right? Especially with recombinators in the game and like +2s and stuff being more accessible than ever to craft, even in SSF. Ashes, you know, isn't super mandatory on most builds unless you really need that extra mana reservation, or if you're running alternate quality gems and, you know, your entire build revolves around gem quality. This build specifically loves gem quality, even though it's not an alternate quality build, because Golems, your stone golems, which is our primary minion, and I'll go over why soon when I get into more mechanics, but your golems get life with quality, which is crazy. Your Herald of Purities, which help with clear speed a lot, get movement speed with quality, which will help with clearing faster. Minion life gets more life with quality. Like, there's so many things in this build that love quality. And while, you know, like minion life is a support and it won't get quality from Ashes, it's just kind of like gem quality on this build is very noticeable. It's like a lot of damage that you get, just to try to like paint a picture of like how nice Ashes would be like on some of this stuff. It benefits like everything. It's crazy. That being said, I ripped my Ashes to standard, so my private league is going to be starting next Friday, and it is currently Wednesday, so I'll probably be farming Eater. This character is going to be like a div card and Eater farmer because of all the stuff that I need for the build. But hopefully it's fun. Hopefully it keeps me busy until the private league starts. Anyway, we path through Golem Commander. This is just, it gives your golems a bunch of life, 30% increased life. And then we get a Minion Mastery, which this isn't the only place we can get this. I just took it here. And then +1 golems, because we want to get as many golems as we can, basically. At least 3, because we're going to get 1 from Ascendancy, 1 from the tree, and then you get 1 baseline, obviously. There is a Anima jewel that gives +1 to golems. I don't have it. It is quite rare. I made Ancient Orb jewels, but that's all I can really do, and it's not a huge deal if I get it or not. It just can make the build play a little bit smoother. And I'll kind of go over that, but it's kind of like how the channeling works on the build. It can make the build a little bit smoother and a little bit more consistent with its damage on single target, but outside of that, it doesn't make a huge difference. 3 is pretty comfortable already. Anywho, so we path through Firewalker. Death Wish is actually a fire skill, spell, whatever, so that cast speed actually does increase Death Wish's cast speed, which you kind of want, because obviously while mapping, you're just tapping right click and it doesn't matter. But when you're trying to get 13, it takes like 1.7 seconds currently of casting. That isn't factoring in like full frenzy charges though. So keep that in mind. But yeah, cast speed's nice. Other than that, life mastery is the typical plus 50 flat, 10% increase max life. LE overload, it's an ignite build. LE overload, 40% more multi. This is actually path drawing, isn't it? Don't path through chance to ignite. We ignite everything. I think this is left over from my leveling tree. Because you do take this for armor leveling. Anywho, you should path through the top here. Grab this fire dot multi. It's just a bunch of fire dot multi for the fire masteries. It's just, again, more fire dot multi, which is really cool. Purity of flesh, it's just life, chaos res, sovereignty, you know, all this is like bread and butter stuff at this point. It's our mana reservation. You take mana reservation efficiency. Pathing through over here, spiritual aid and righteous army through the right side. This is important because we want minion life. Minion life is probably our biggest scaler overall, in terms of overall damage. I am currently looking at anointing divine judgment. There is a way for me to, like, my endgame PoB has skitter bots in the build, which I'm not currently running, but as you can see, it's already pretty tight on mana, so I'm going to have to get, craft some stuff up in order to be able to fit skitter bots into the build, either through, like, ashes, helm lab enchants for mana reservation efficiency on determination, stuff like that. Just, or, you know, like a Drox amulet, Veritani amulet, you know, whatever. Just something to help with mana reservation efficiency, so I can fit in skitter bots, which I may need to anoint charisma to make that happen. But yeah, this is overall, this is a 15 or 16% damage increase, while skitter bots is like a 17.5% damage increase for the build. But we also benefit from chill, so it's marginally better damage wise, but a lot better overall when you take into account the fact that, you know, chill, great defense. Though I will say, there is no like extra heebie-jeebie like gimmicky mechanics you can do with that, because Death Wish can't target invulnerable minions. Skitterbots are invulnerable minions according to the video game, so it's not like fitting those in, you know, will give you more minion channels. So opening past the tree back up, we path through devotion, up through holy dominion, discipline and training. Retribution's really nice because we get 15% increased damage. With minions deal 15% increased damage, obviously because we took spiritual aid. Increases to minion damage apply to us as well, so that's 30% increased damage with 5% increased cast speed from one node. This build is a little bit tight, just like DD Ignite, is a little bit tight on attributes, so you're going to want for strength and dex, so that 10 strength is nice. We path down through precision here because it gives us, again, additional dex, and we get 10% cast speed from here as well, so it's pretty good. Now, this is a huge node for damage once you're actually swapped over. So sacrifice is really good because the two small nodes leading up to it are 24% minion life, and then the notable itself is an additional 20%, which is 44%, and then you get to take the minion defense mastery, which is an additional 30% minion life. So this is 74% minion life for 4 passive points. Really, really nice. And some life regen, which is cool, I guess. Now, on the right side of the tree, over here, melding, it's OP, super OP node. It's a bunch of life, and then a baby Gravicius craft. Pathing over through here, and this pathing is important. Keep this in mind. There's a notable along the travels here that gives, or not a notable, there's a travel node here that gives 10 strength versus everything going this way, even if it is the same amount of points, gives int. Pathing through trickery, again, this is good because we need that dex. The crit chance is nice. The, you know, just generic damage is nice as well. Blood siphon, again, strength, we love that. Typical life node. Coming down through coordination. Cast speed, again, really good for the build, and more dex. After that, pathing up through growth and decay. This is, you know, a bunch of dot multi and life regen. Leth shade to, you know, reduce dots. Dots are super dangerous in the game right now. And that's going to be the most dangerous thing to a build like this, which is, you know, super common this build. These builds running Ghost Shroud with Grace, Determination, with the Gravicius Life is ES mod, you know, like you have a lot of defense against hits, but not a lot of defense against degens, and you don't have a lot of like recovery, like raw life recovery. A lot of your recovery revolves around you getting hit. So Leth Shade to help mitigate our biggest weakness. Pathing up through Instinct. Like most Ignite builds now, the Spell Suppression Mastery is super OP. Crit chances increase by chance to suppress spell damage. Once your spell sub capped, that's 100% increase spell crit. So it'll give you a lot more consistency with your EOs. Which I will say, Death Wish is pretty good about EO consistency because every single one of these minions explodes, right? You're hitting so many times. And there's like so much time in between your golems respawning where you can just like you can just mash that. So like typically what I do when I get to a map boss or like a boss, I'll like channel, I'll get the initial ignite off so there's at least damage ticking. And then because 90% of the build's damage is coming from golems anyway, I'll summon some skellies and then I'll just like kind of like Vol DD, right? I'll just summon a bunch of skellies and tap to try to get it to crit if I didn't crit on the initial one, which you basically have 4 seconds to do before the golems respawn. Now, getting back into the tree, we path through Writ and Blood up to the top side. You want Influence, which is more, well, a little bit of mana reservation. The only thing that gives mana reservation here is this small travel node. But this is a bunch of aura effect with the reservation mastery for more aura effect. That, you know, that's tons of, like, this, just the mastery alone, like, if you look at like your armor and your evasion before and after clicking just this one mastery, you realize how freaking ridiculous it is. And that'll obviously go for damage and everything else as well. Then we path down for Ghost Dance because obviously massive defensive layer. We are using Ghost Shrouds in the build. I currently have Mind Drinker anointed. This is not the end game anoint. It's not anything near that. It's just, it's quality of life right now since mana's tight, and I'll go over why mana is tight when I get to the Ascendancies here in a second. And then pathing down through the tree, through this way is just more dex. There is technically, you can go this way for dex, and this is more dex, but it is an extra passive point as well. Over pathing this way, it's only 2 passives this way. With also, I may end up going for Frenzy Charge tech late game. So grabbing this, you know, 20% duration node here with Frenzy Charge gains every X seconds with a jewel here that also has Frenzy Charge duration, which will give me 13-second Frenzy Charges. So yeah, that may be something I decide to do, simply because cast speed tends to make bossing feel a lot smoother on the build, and it's just a ton of damage, right? Especially with the +1, that would be 16% more damage multiplier, which is really good. And then we're going to path through Blood Drinker, so that's currently what I'm going for. It'll pop me over 5k life and probably like 1.6k-ish, maybe a little bit over that ES, which will put me very happily at almost 7k raw HP without a Glorious Vanity or anything. So that's what the tree currently is. Like I said, right now I'm pathing for Blood Drinker. Past that end game, once I get stuff going, and I have actually farmed up a bunch of Eldritch currency because I'm scraping bottom of the barrel with it right now, I may path through here and grab these 4 points. The thing that I love about Ghost Dance builds that path down through here is you're right next to one with evil, so it like you can kind of like temporarily grab some Chaos Res nodes if you're really hurting. It's not like you need to grab all of them. You can grab 1 or 2, and that's 11 to 22% Chaos Res. It's just very efficient early on. Past that, what other points? Basically, outside of that and small life notables, it's only really damage still to be taken on the tree. I still haven't taken Breath of Flames, which is huge damage. Yeah, there's just lots of damage on the tree. That's basically it. A little bit of life, and then I kind of want to leave like spare points. There's also like Acrimony, which is tons of damage again. Just again, damage. That's all that's really left on the tree to take, and the build already does a ton of damage. There's also notable down here, Elemental Focus, which gives duration, which is really good for Ignite builds, especially ones that like to do one big Ignite and let it sit as long as possible. But I kind of want to save some points in case I end up needing to, or in case I decide to end up running Glorious Vanity or anything like that for extra defense, etc., etc. So now moving on to the Ascendancies. First off, we take, while leveling, you're going to go into Shaper of Flames first. Once you get this, you should unspec this, which I didn't, and take the extra fire dot multi. But you know, hits always ignite, all damage can ignite, tons of extra damage with ignite. Very cool. Hoggies. Moving on here through Mastermind of Discord and Cruel Lab, and then this is where I was talking about Mind Drinker. So Mind Drinker just gives us a bunch of mana, so we don't have to worry about mana issues while clearing. So Mastermind of Discord will regen 1% of mana per second if you've inflicted exposure recently, but currently I have no way of inflicting exposure except for casting Wave of Conviction manually. Now, as soon as Chris Wilson decides to let me actually hit exposure on hit on my gloves, then I can drop Wave of Conviction from the build entirely, and basically this 1% mana regen is going to be active 24/7 instead of basically never. So once I get that, I'll have enough mana regen, I can drop Mind Drinker, and then, you know, I won't be pain champing with mana issues anymore. And then, obviously, it's a ton of extra damage. Exposure you inflict applies an extra 25% to the affected resistances. Moving on from there, we go into Heart of Destruction. Well, actually, I went for Legion Primordial and Merc Lab, because running that somewhere around like 65-ish, the helmet's 73, you're pretty close at that point to actually swapping over. I wanted the +1 golems, so I basically had a dead node for a few levels until I could put the helmet on, but 100% increased buff effect granted by golems, and then like the entire crux of the build here, summon golems are resummoned 4 seconds after being killed, and +1 to maximum summon golems. So once you have this plus this notable here on the tree, you'll have 3 golems total, and after you nuke them, you'll get a timer up here, and then they will spawn again to come back. Finally, the 100% increased effective buffs granted by your golems is cool. I mean, you know, I get some nice life regen, but considering I'm constantly detonating them, I don't like factor that into like my build's defensive layers at all, considering I basically never want them to be alive, so I should never really be benefiting from that too much. Finally, in Uber Lab, the small notables here are cool, by the way, because they give cast speed, but Uber Lab, this is where the build like pops off like extremely, because not only do you get 30% more elemental damage, which is basically an extra support gem anytime you're fighting a boss, but you get 60% increased AoE when you're not fighting a boss. And as you can see, this explosion is huge. Like, this explosion looks really big, right? The funny thing is the explosion is actually a little bit bigger than the animation would imply. And when you're running Ignite Prolif, because remember, Ignite Prolif is increased by generic increases to AoE, right? So your Ignite Proliferation AoE is also getting increased by this, which means while you're running around, you right click this once and the entire screen and then some is ignited and instantly dies. Like, it's super buttery smooth to play. Feels very good. So that's the Ascendancy and the passive tree. So now we're gonna go over the gear a little bit. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the helmet. So there's a lot of, like, when I was like looking into this, because the first part of making any good build, as everyone knows, is to look on the internet to see if someone else has already done all the work for you. But a lot of the other ways I saw the build being played, there were some good ideas there, but a lot of it looked to be kind of inefficient to me, or not really min-maxed properly, because I think the reason why is POB will give you some really wonky feedback in terms of how you're dealing damage with the build. So let me pull this up here. So you guys can kind of ignore this a little bit. Ignore the numbers, they're not relevant. I was just testing a bunch of random stuff here. There's not, like, it's a naked character. There's nothing going on here. So these numbers are not, they don't matter. This isn't like the final POB or anything like that. So like, if you look at this, your total DPS and then your Ignite DPS. Well, your Ignite DPS is like, okay, well, like 4.8 mil roughly, but our total DPS is about 8.4 mil roughly. So why is our total DPS so much higher than our Ignite DPS? Well, because your on hit actually deals crazy damage. So I see a lot of people running stuff in the helmet like Combustion. So this is a really good example here. If I put in Combustion, it's giving me like a ton of damage back, right? 8.1, well, 8.2 mil total DPS and 3.8 mil ignite DPS, right? Running cruelty, which you should be running. So like, I guess your base 4 link here is like running burning damage, cruelty, inspiration. And then it's kind of the 4th link is kind of where stuff gets like thrown into whack. Obviously cruelty would be swapped out for swift affliction for bossing. But yeah, you can kind of ignore this, pretend this doesn't exist. So the big decision here is whether or not you want combustion or unbound ailments. Because when you put in combustion, it's going to tell you 9.1 mil total DPS, right? Then you put in unbound ailments and it's going to tell you 8.2 mil DPS, which looks way worse, right? And then if we look at the ignite DPS with unbound ailments, we're at 3.7 mil. And with combustion, we're at about 3.7 mil too. So the DPS on the ignite itself is almost the same. But if we go over here into calcs, and this is important because it's a ignite build, right? So we go over to Death Wish, we look at the minion explosion. And again, you guys can ignore the numbers, it's not important. But when running combustion, our damage per ignite is about 19.2 mil. And this is the damage over the whole duration of the ignite before the ignite expires, right? Now, if we take unbound ailments and we look now our damage per ignite is 31.1 million, which is quite a lot more. So I think a lot of people kind of get baited by POB because the reality is that number is not anywhere remotely similar to, like, it's not based in reality, right? Because that's assuming you're free casting on your minions the whole time. It assumes, because I have like 10 here on the channel, it assumes I'm channeling to 10 stacks, letting go, channeling 10 stacks, letting go, channeling to 10 stacks, letting go, channeling to 10 stacks. And that's not how you play this build. Like you can't. I'm gated 4-second cooldown anytime I have the golems out. So you got to be careful, I think, when you're actually POBing this, because it'll give you a lot of like false information, I guess. It can be misleading in the way it will present its damage to you. That being said, I think kind of hybridizing the damage a little bit is worth taking into account because you can still get good damage on this. So basically, and this may change endgame. I guess we're not talking about gear here, are we? I'm breaking some mechanics down, but you guys got chapters. You can click around if you don't care about this. So basically, I'm planning around 13 stages. Why am I planning around 13 stages? Because when we run unbound ailments, our ignites, as you can see here, are lasting 8.36 seconds, and there's nodes on the tree that we still haven't taken that will increase the duration further. So it'll be around 9 seconds, which is good. It gives us a lot of wiggle room because our golems only take 4 seconds to respawn, right? But basically, the idea here is that we have 4 seconds after we explode our golems to spawn more minions. So Herald of Purity is 4 minions. Our golems are 3 minions, right? So that's 7 minions. So if we cast Summon Skeletons twice, we have 6 minions now. 7 plus 6 is 13, which puts us directly at the cap for Death Wish, right? Now, this is where this kind of comes into play a little bit. So you explode the golems, and then you have effectively 4 seconds to get your skeletons out, which is plenty of time. Like the way it would kind of play is you would explode, you'd explode all your golems, cast Summon Skeletons twice, and then you can even start channeling. So it will hit the golems as soon as they spawn. So it's not like you gotta wait until all the minions are out before you can start channeling. You can start channeling when there's no minions, right? You just don't start gaining stacks. So basically you'll pop them. You have 4 seconds to get your 2 skeletons out before the golems respawn, and then you pop them again. Now, right now, I'm not running anything, but I was testing out like faster casting and spell echo possibly, because a lot of the links are going to be different later on once I get like the gear that I want set up, and like the implicit rolls, like I was talking about the exposure on hit. I think late game, I'm going to run either faster casting or spell echo, because I only need to cast it twice, right? So a spell echo, I can literally just hit it once. It'll go, and then I'm done, right? There's no, like, that's it. There's no more messing around with it. And it just makes it simpler, and they'll be out really fast, which is beneficial. It'll just make it it's like quality of life. It'll make it a lot smoother to play, I think. So you have 4 seconds to get them out, start channeling, whatever. So what we can kind of like, the way that I'm kind of like mathing this out in terms of like reality is we can take our on hit DPS, which is let's just say 5 million, right? We can take our on hit DPS, which is like say 5 million, and then we'll just literally divide it by 4. So our on hit DPS is going to be around 1.2 million, simply because you take your damage per second, and then you're going to have like roughly 25% uptime on that damage, right? Now, in reality, you're probably going to be detonating a lot more than once every 4 seconds, just because of like how the build works and stuff like that. But for the sake of like argument and like calculation of damage, this is a pretty safe assumption to make that your on-hit DPS will have around 20 to 25% uptime. So we get like an extra mil. So instead of this 9.4 mil, this crazy number you see here, you would just take this number and add it to your Ignite DPS, which we'll just say is 4285000. We add that, and then this is more in line of what our actual DPS is, without this like insane number here completely inflating it, to kind of put this into perspective for you guys. And this is still really respectable numbers considering it's on a naked character with like a bunch of random stuff taken, and yeah, like ignore the level 100 tree too. Like a lot of this is just, again, this was like some random testing stuff. It's just looking at different numbers and seeing seeing what's better basically. So this was the tree that I was using to determine like if I wanted to scale minion life or like generic Ellie damage, and how much minion life was actually giving life to my golems, etc., 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 right? That's what all that was. So don't worry about the tree. Don't worry about the numbers on the tree. Anyway, going on from there, we're gonna move into actual gear now. So we have the helmet, which is like build enabling, right? That's the whole thing to build space around. Like I said in the map showcase, I'm using barracks. I think this ring is honestly really trash. I'm just using it right now. I might even drop it and go back to Ignite Prolift like I was before. I was just testing out Unbound Ailments to see how it felt, for like general mapping, just kind of whatever. Obviously, ultimately, I would like to get Ignite Prolift on my gloves, but Eater Influence has just been very mean to me, and I still haven't gotten it, so non-mods on the gloves, sadly. But yeah, I want to get rid of this as soon as possible. I have 2 rings ready to go as soon as I can get rid of this. Another ring slot, I have a really nice ring here, honestly. It's flat life regen, 16% to all, which is tier 1, all resistances. 25 fire res, +1 minimum frenzy charge with frenzy charge gain on kill, and bench crafted on life, as you do. So pretty solid ring there. Amulet slot is basically nothing. It's life, strength, res. It is what it is. Moving on to the shield. This is a kind of a crappy shield, but decent enough for the time being. It's got some healthy resistance rolls, a decent enough life roll, and a decent enough spell suppression roll. Moving down to the boots. The boots are pretty good. Basically, it's oopsies. Basically, tier 1 life, an open prefix for move speed with chill immunity. Tier 2 spell sup, which is exactly what I wanted. It took me forever to get these last night. I needed tier 2 or higher spell sup. So tier 2 spell sup and a good resistance roll. The gloves are okay too. It's a shame about the spell suppression being so low, but it is able to be worked around. Basically, hit it with essences, as you can see, to hit a decent ES roll. Tier 3 life, open prefix for +1 to socketed AoE gems with increased AoE. That's because I have my auras in here, so I'm getting +1 to my grace. I'm getting +1 to my determination as well. With chaos res, which is important, kind of really crappy, honestly, lightning res roll and a pretty mediocre spell suppression roll. In the chest piece, I'm running again, just a really bad item. Like this was just a random chains that binds turn in. I failed a few recombinators before I finally hit this. Basically, I just got spell suppression on a evasion base and chucked it into this just to get a little bit of spell suppression on a free 6-link. On like an otherwise like failed chains that bind turn in. This is obviously going to be a strength dex base as soon as I you know, complete my next chains that bind turn in, and hopefully that will finally give me the right base that I want, because so far this league I'm like 0 for 8 in chains that bind turn ins, giving me the actual like one beneficial base type in the game right now. It's always like pure ES, armor ES, or pure evasion. That's like all I get. It's crazy. Moving on from there, my belt, honestly pretty solid. It's kind of a low life roll, but it rolled tier 1 armor, which is crazy. Some life regen, and then a bunch of chaos res, which is what I was really needing the most. As you can see, I'm only at 15% in the green on chaos res with an open suffix. And I did a strength dex craft just to help with attributes for the time being, because I'm pretty healthy on strength, especially with the other strength rolls I have on my gear. But my dex is a little bit low, and if I remember correctly, it's 155 dex to be able to use a level 20 grace, which means I'm still 6 dex off. Now, this rolls out of 25, and it's at 22 right now, so I could get another 3 there, but I'd still be 2 dex off, so, you know, but this ring right here that I want to eventually transition to when I'm done with barracks has 22 dex on it as well. So that will solve my dex issues and leave me capped there. It'll have me a little bit over cap, but that will save me a passive point, so I don't need to take agility anymore. So that is all the gear. I'll move into the gym links now. So you guys kind of saw this a little bit in the POB, but currently I'm running Cruelty, Awaken burning damage support, and you don't need to use the Awaken gems. It's just, obviously, you guys heard me complaining in some of the past videos. I farmed Maven almost 100 times this league. And I still haven't gotten any of the woke gems I wanted, but I did have some, you know, spare ones lying around for whatever build I decided to play next. So I have Awaken Unbound, I have Awaken Burning Damage, the normal ones will do just fine, with Cruelty and Inspiration. If you're wondering why Inspiration, it's just more crit, honestly, to help with EO uptime. I think it is probably pretty mandatory to make it feel smooth. Other than that, if you don't want to use barracks or you don't have it, you would just use Ignite Prolif instead of Unbound, and then eventually swap that out when you get the implicit on your gloves. And then friendly reminder that Cruelty gets replaced with Deadly Ailments for bossing, because you will not be able to get max Cruelty effect, or probably anywhere close to it, on any pinnacle bosses. You don't need to do it for, like, even like Guardians, you're probably fine. It's not really worth gem swapping for stuff like that. But for like any actual like endgame bossing, you're going to want to swap. From there, in the shield, we have faster attacks with shield charge and a separate link, Herald of Purity, because the faster attacks can support them, which increases the reservation, so make sure it's not linked up. In the boots, I'm running Flame Dash, Malevolence, Life Tap, and Divine Blessing. So I am running a Divine Blessing setup on my Malevolence. I haven't actually used it basically at all yet. Even running through T15s and T16s, I have had more than enough damage. I haven't felt like I needed it at all. And I still have a bunch of damage to grab on the tree. So that's probably going to be a button I only ever click for like endgame bossing. And outside of that, I just don't, it just doesn't exist to me. So that's neat. Moving on through the gloves, just typical Molten Shell, cast damage taken setup with our 2 auras, Grace and Determination. In my chest piece, I'm running Wave of Conviction, Flame Surge, Flammability, Hex Touch Support, Convocation, and Defiance Banner. This doesn't need to be a 6-link, as you could probably tell. It's just, I didn't have anything else and I just needed sockets, right? The gym links are going to change wildly as I get gear that I need and implicits on my gear that I need. Like I said before, once I get exposure on hit on gloves, Wave of Conviction is gone. I will probably try to craft a Flam ring. I do have a bunch of Drox rings lying around with Flam on them, but that's kind of the only mod they have that's beneficial there. I'm going to probably try to craft a ring to help with more sockets. Undecided, but it's a possibility. So, like, Hex Touch would be gone. Yeah, there's so much stuff here that just doesn't need to exist. Honestly. Combustion would probably be, like, I'm thinking, like, endgame setup here is just, like, Flame Surge with Combustion. Or in a 4-link, Flame Surge, Combustion, Hex Touch, Flammability if I don't use a curse on hit ring, something like that. But, a lot of what the links are going to be depends on my drops with gear. Like I said, I ripped my Empower. I didn't have a backup one. I am going to try to farm div cards, the artist cards, through the div card that gives that card, like the palette, the paint, the brush, or whatever. I've already gotten like 2 or 3 out of 11 from just turning in those div cards. And that'll give me a level 4 enhance, which gives a bunch of gym quality. And gym quality is good because it gives our Stone Golem life, like I said at the beginning of the video. So that will actually be a damage link in terms of scaling our minion life further. If I get an Empower, you know, that's a bunch of gym levels, which is more minion life. I actually, one thing that's really cool is I do have a Woke added fire, which looks useless, right? But at level 5, Woke added fire gives +1 for some reason to physical gyms, which I mean, it makes sense. It's like a phys of fire conversion gym, right? But Summon Stone Golem is a physical tag gym, so we could get +1 from there as well. So it kind of depends what I end up doing. There's 2 possible outcomes here, depending on what other stuff I get. If I get it to the point where I can run like the Stone Golem in a 6 link or close to it with like Summon Stone Golem, Minion Life, level 5 Woke Burning for the +1, Enhance, Empower, you know, something like that to give it a, you know, just really juice it up. The Enhance, I can pretty much guarantee target farm, just a matter of time. Woke Burning damage, super easy to level up, just spamming Torah and Research. And Harvest Gym Faceter Lens, super easy to level Woke Gyms up. So there's that setup, and then there's another setup where I actually take my cast when damage taken setup and my life tap setup with the Divine Blessing, and then I put that in a 6 link with Molten Shell, cast when damage taken, Divine Blessing, life tap, Malevolence, and increased duration, and that would all be in the 6 link together. And that would let my Malevolence last, instead of like 12 seconds at gym level 20, it would last like, you know, like 20 to 25 seconds or whatever it is, which would let me have to use it way less during boss fights, which would be nice. And then obviously increased duration on Molten Shell is really, really strong. If you have the extra gym socket and can fit that into a build, it helps a lot with your Molten Shell uptime, which, you know, helps mitigate more potential damage. So there's all sorts of stuff. I'm gonna have to see what I get, what feels good, what falls into place. But this is what I'm running right now. Finally, in the wand, I'm just running Summon Stone Golem, Summon Skeletons, and Minion Life. The Skeletons didn't, they don't need Minion Life. It doesn't even have to be Ball Summon Skeletons. I have it on my bar, but I've kind of stopped using it because you summon so many Skeletons when you use Ball Summon Skeletons, and you're capped at 13 minions. Sometimes you just won't actually hit a Golem, and then it like wastes the entire time you spent channeling and you get no damage from it, because Stone Golems have giga life, you guys. They have a ton of life. Way more life than any other minion. It's actually ridiculous. So like end game, like without the crazy setup I just talked about of putting that in a 5 link, we're talking like end game with just like a +1 wand, and like what you have on the tree, on the passive tree by itself, just that, they're like 65k ish life, somewhere in that range, and like skeletons are like 5k life. Like, it's ridiculous. So Stone Golems are the best option for this build by far. That's effectively why we're an Elementalist. I was thinking about going Necro and stuff as well, but Stone Golems are basically mandatory for this build as far as I can see. I mean, it's so much more damage than any other alternative. The Skeletons, the Herald of Purities. The Herald of Purities actually have quite a bit of life themselves. It's like 15-ish K to 20k, somewhere in that range, which is very respectable. That means like while I'm running around, while I'm mapping, you may think like, well, you only have 3 of them and they take 4 seconds to spawn. How do you clear? Well, the Herald of Purities come out anytime you hit something, basically. So you always have the Herald of Purities, and just exploding 1 Herald of Purity, they have enough life by themselves to just entirely clear a screen, unless it's the only time you're gonna like not instantly kill everything with the Herald of Purities is if you get like a rare monster that has like Flame Weaver or whatever, or Flame Walker, whatever that mod is, that gives them a ton of extra fire res, but that's just Arch Nemesis mods. And outside of that, you only need the Stone Golems for like bosses and essence monsters. Everything outside of that, just the Herald of Purities will kill them. And then the Skeletons are just there to add to your, you know, your channel cap of 13. That's the only reason you need them. So, that's all the links there. Oh, I forgot to go over my jewel in my belt. It's just a ghastly jewel with cast speed if a minion's been killed recently. So basically 8% increased cast speed given the build. Some armor and some life. It's really nothing. It's a pretty crap jewel. It's just what I have on hand right now. That's pretty much everything. In my flasks, I'm running, you know, use charge when full, instillings. It's massive quality of life for the build. I think at this point, with this league, I can finally say that I've broken the muscle memory, because I never used to like really prioritize it very highly, because even when I had them, I would still, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, like every few packs. Finally, I have broken the muscle memory of needing to mash flasks, and I still do it, right, while leveling, league start, all sorts of stuff like that. But I have finally developed the muscle memory to, once I get these enchants on the flasks, I don't touch the flasks anymore. I let them do their thing. Obviously, I still have the presence of mind. If I need it for something, or if I want to hit them preemptively, like, obviously I'll still do that. But yeah, it's nice to finally have broken that curse of my left hand, just always needing to hit flasks after, you know, doing it for thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. So definitely get that enchant on every build you play. It's amazing. It adds so much to quality of life, and it'll save your left hand. Take it from me. So the actual mods are running: increased armor, increased evasion, reduced effective shock, and reduced effective curse. I think ultimately, I want to go for CB immune, or get ignite removal on one of these instead. Like, I may get rid of the shock reduction or something, because with Left Shade, it does its job really well, but when I get ignited, it's like super pain champ, so I want to get ignite removal somewhere. Past that, I think that's everything. We went over the golems, we went over passive tree, links, gear, game mechanics. Yeah. I guess that's kind of everything, huh? I guess you can kind of see there's a ton of buttons here. Don't let it scare you. While clearing, you're just tapping right click like that. For map bosses, use Flame Surge like with any Ignite build. And I'm not even using the skeletons right now. Like that's like only like boss level stuff. Like that's the only time you need to use any of that stuff. Like I said, I'm not using the life tap either. I have more than enough damage. Wave of Conviction to apply exposure as well, but again, once you get exposure on hit on your gloves, you don't need that anymore. So the playstyle, while it can look intimidating with all these buttons, it's actually very smooth, and it's not that many buttons. It's not a whole lot to be scared of, and the quality of life will only go up from here. Now, I guess closing statements here. How do I feel about the build? Where do I see it going? Plans, blah, 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 blah. The build's really fun. It looked incredibly strong on paper when I POB'd it. There's still a bunch of experimentation I need to do to find out like what setup I'm really happy with, what I want to do with it. Overall though, it's a very fun, unique play style. Like I said, it reminds me a lot of Telly Stomping, Corpse Explosion Necro from D2, and kind of like Summon Skelly Dark Pact, but instead of a 1-2 button play style, it's just a 1-button play style, at least while clearing. And it kind of feels like everything Dark Pact Skellies wishes it was. But you do have to kind of play it as Ignite, which, you know, Dark Pact Skellies is on hit build, so there's the difference there. But it's really smooth to play. Been having a lot of fun with it. Looking forward to stream today to push it further, get a bunch of changes and gear going on, etc., etc. And like I said, hopefully this build doesn't die, and hopefully it maintains my attention span until the private league. So I think that's everything, you guys. At the end of the video here, I do want to announce some stuff coming down the pipeline. Tomorrow or the day after, depending on when the video actually goes up, will be the balance video, where I talk about like the current state of just skill balance and stuff relative to the game, and like game design and stuff like that. That's like the next rant video that's coming out in the next day or two. And then about a day or two after that, very soon in the near future, will be the private league video. That'll be the official announcement video. We'll go over signups, rules, the ban list of what skills will and won't be allowed. Probably recommended builds with like maybe possibly pre-made POBs to follow, you know, the whole shebang. So that is what is in the immediate future following the next like 5 or so days. So keep an eye out for that. With potentially a second episode for this character mixed somewhere in there. So there is a possibility of that as well. With that, I'm going to end here. Thanks a bunch. If you made it this far, let me know down in the comments if you watched the whole thing. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a thumbs up. It does help me with the algorithm. If you did not enjoy the video, feel free to leave me a thumbs down. Even though YouTube doesn't show them, I still see them. And you can leave me some constructive criticism in the comments down below. Like, hey, get through one of your outros without stuttering. I'll get there one day. And then finally, if you enjoyed the content that I'm putting out on the channel, maybe consider subbing. It does show support for me. It lets me know that I'm doing a good job. And other socials. Discord, Twitter, Twitch, links down below. You guys know where to find them. And the current character's POB will also be down in the description, as always, with the build diaries. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I'm going to end the video here. Thanks a bunch. We'll be live on Twitch directly after you see this go up on YouTube. If you want to come by and say hi. This was a long one. I'll see you guys next time. Stay safe. Have fun. Bye-bye.